Welcome into the lounge presented by DraftKings. We are thrilled to sit down with fullback Pat Ricard, Project Pat, Pancake Pat, all the nicknames. We'll start here. You guys are running the ball at a historic clip. I don't know if you know this, but Derrick Henry's on pace to break the single season rushing record, Eric Dickerson's record. Okay, so if that happens, I mean, you got to get the kudos for being the lead blocker, right? I mean, you go in the Hall of Fame too, right?
I mean, you got to give credit to Derrick and, the O-line myself. But, I mean, Derrick's one of one. It takes a special back to have those kind of yards. And I'm just so glad and honored to be his teammate and to lead block for him. It's been a lot of fun so far. And we're going to keep this thing going. And, let's try to get that record for him. We asked this of Tyler Linderbaum last week, but how much does it hurt and how much do you not want Derrick to run into your back, like when you're trying to block? So what's funny is in training camp, trying to get, used to playing with him, when the ball snapped, I'm running to get my block. Sometimes I need to kind of read it out to see where I'm going. Yeah. And maybe I slow down a little bit. And I've done that in the past and it's been fine. Backs will maybe put their hand on my back or they're patient too. He's getting the ball and he's hitting it full speed. So he's in the past in training camp. Yeah. I'm trying to read my block out and getting used to it. He'll just put his hand on my back and he's knocked me to my knees. That's never happened before by running back. But he's so strong that now it's as soon as the ball snapped, I have to be full speed, making sure my read is as fast as possible and hit it as fast as possible because he's trying to hit the ball downhill very fast. Yeah. So it's not fun to get a stiff arm in the back by him.
It's kind of funny because when we asked Linderbaum the question too, he was like, yeah, the other day I walked through, he ran into my back and it hurt. I was like, watch out, man. So both you guys have actually had to deal with being on the receiving end of a Derrick Henry stiff arm. So I'm curious for you, you've been part of some great teams, great offenses here. But this group is playing at such a high level. It's different guys every week. It's running the ball. It's passing the ball. I feel like this is the best offense that I've ever seen the Ravens have. You've been part of the team for a long time. What do you think about that? Is this the best Ravens offense you've been part of?
I mean, so far we've played 7 games. It's hard to say. I've had a lot of great offenses here, a lot of record-breaking offenses. But I'd probably say it's probably the best complete offense. We can pass the ball, we can run the ball, screens, play actions, different types of runs, different pass concepts. There's so many guys involved. I think it's just great coaching. I think second year with Monken, I think Lamar's been here for a long time. A lot of similar guys that's been here. And then, the only big change has been the addition of Derrick Henry. Yeah. And I think
addition.
Yeah, exactly. I think
nicely.
Yeah. So I think it's just everything that's been here in addition with him and just the growth that we've all had as a group and individuals, it's really just taken off and, we're still growing, still learning together. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
One thing that's crazy about you is I think the last time we had you on the podcast, it was going into the first year with Monken, and we're talking about what's the role going to look like, and there was talk of you playing guard, and it's is there a need for a fullback in this off? That was the conversation. Now in the second year, those aren't even questions anymore. Obviously, your role is very well defined, and you're playing at such a high level. So how do you look back at that whole conversation and how you have been able to really assert yourself as an impact player?
Are you retiring guards?
I'm done with that.
Not going back to that.
It was more of I was dealing with my hip surgery in the off season. It was my agent that came up with the idea of me why don't we just kind of look at guard? You can't do anything right now anyways. Let's kind of see if it's even an option for me. And I was so against it, but I'm I would regret not just looking at it and kind of seeing, but I didn't, I had a little bit of time at it in training camp, but I was getting back. I didn't see myself having a career future in it, even if I was good at it or not. I like what I do now a lot better. Yeah. So having go through all that, had the whole year last year, I knew that there's a role for me here. I just got to keep growing, keep getting better, and keep doing what I've been doing.
It's working okay.
Yeah. What's the look that you see from opponents when they see you and Derrick coming downhill at them?
There's a lot of people in the box. There's a lot of guys. Yeah. And it's either they're trying to run as fast as they can to beat me to the spot, or they're trying to meet me in the backfield. I've noticed that a lot this year, that when Derrick's getting the ball and I'm lead blocking, and say it's a lead play or we're tossing the ball out on the edge. I've had games where I'm meeting them like at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. Like they're trying to like, don't let me gain speed on them. Don't let me like hit them to where Derrick has space. I think that's the biggest difference is I've been noticing with defenders.
Yeah. Have you gotten any comments out there? Like anybody that's like this, this isn't fair. Like two guys this big, this isn't allowed.
No, I think they're probably trying to save their energy, not trying to like.
They're more angry. They're not going to give you the props on the field.
No.
Do you feel that like the cliche is that this offense and the running game wears people down? You're better in the fourth quarter. Like, do you feel that on the field?
I definitely do. And then especially games where maybe we're passing the ball a little bit more in the game, like the Cincinnati game where it's just like it's just back and forth, and we're passing the ball, moving the ball, and I come in the game towards the end. I feel how tired the defenders are. Like you don't feel the energy. You don't feel like the when I hit them, you don't feel like the power in them as much. But yeah, even when we run the ball late in games, you kind of just feel like they're defeated, they're deflated, or just tired in general.
Interesting. It seems like you really, especially coming out like early in the first quarter, you will try to set the tone too. Like I noticed that your blocks in the first quarter tend to go to the echo of the whistle. Yes. You're like running guys to the bench and stuff. Is that something that you take pride in? Like you are trying to make a statement?
Yeah, I'm just trying to like set the tone for myself and for the defense to know that like when I come in and I block you, like I'm not getting off the block. I'm not going to stop until I hear the whistle or you get off of it. And sometimes it might be a little much, even for my own standard. Like, oh, maybe I did block him a little too long. But at the same time, it's like, why not? Like make sure he feels me. Make sure he knows that like I have to get off this block or I have to hit him really hard and not let him block me. Essentially,
right.
Do you see yourself as like a tone setter for the offense?
I think
for sure.
Physicality, I think that I kind of set the standards. We have a lot of physical guys, but I'm the one that's more out in space and lead blocking. So it's like, if I'm not doing it, then it's like, I don't know. That's kind of why I'm here, to be that physical presence, I feel like. So it's like, I have to make sure I'm doing it every game.
Well, the toss left play has been kind of the finishing move, as I've been calling it, in a few games. And then it was stretch left this past game that really got him going for the 81 yarder. And you, again, met a guy in the backfield, put him on his back.
Yep.
Corner. Yeah. What is the feeling when Todd calls stretch left or toss left and you're out in front? Like, how excited are you to run that play?
Those are the plays where I know I have to, like, soon as I know that ball is being snapped, I have to get out of my stance as fast as I can and make sure I'm moving, because there's been instances where I've tried to get around a block. Derrick's already passed me. So it's like I get excited because I know it's like this play can hit. It can either hit for 5 yards or it can hit for 80 or 100.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like the same thing with playing with Lamar over the years. It's like you guys so excited to block for this guy because like you just don't know what he's going to do with the ball in his hands. And that's what happening with Derrick is like, if I make this block and he gets a seam, it's very hard for someone to tackle in open space. He's either going to stiff arm you, make you miss, and then he's just gone.
Right.
Now, Pat, last question for me is, you played with Lamar for a long time now. You know him well. When he joined us before the season on the pod, actually, he talked about having a sense of urgency and just having there was urgency to everything he was doing and wanting to make sure that this team did everything they could to get as far as you guys can this year. Do you sense that from him?
Definitely. It's hard to describe. Like, I know I've been playing with him for my whole career with him, vice versa. So it's like, you always felt that with him, but I think he maybe shows it more in how he plays, or of just more of like getting on guys if it's not right in his eyes. And like, I think it's more of like, he's more urgent of like fixing things right then and there. Like, say like someone runs a route and they don't connect on it, he's going to talk to him right away. Like, he puts it on himself now. Maybe before he would kind of let things slide or, all these things. But now I've seen like, he tries to fix things right now, gets on the same page with guys, tells them like, hey, I want you to run like this, or I didn't throw it because of this. Like, you need to do this. And then he'll get feedback. I think that's what we've been seeing more accountability with everybody and trying to just like have the urgency of like fixing it right then and there.
That's awesome. Well, a big game up in Cleveland here. It's going to be a physical game as always with them, and I look forward to a lot of pancakes out there. It's going to be an IHOP out there. Thanks for joining us, Pat.
Of course. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Well, big thanks to Pat for stopping by the SeatGeek studio here on the lounge. Also, we want to mention our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. They are an official sports betting partner of the Baltimore Ravens. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. So, Ryan, the Ravens are headed to Cleveland this weekend.
Is the crown yours? It should be the crown is Derrick Henry. I mean, I feel like this is tailor-made right now, right? The crown is ours and Derrick Henry's.
Derrick Henry always has the crown.
He always has the crown.
He always has the crown.
So he just shares it with us.
Yeah. So with the Ravens heading on the road this week to Cleveland, AFC North matchup, the second game in the division. Obviously, there's a lot of change, a lot happening in Cleveland. And let's start with the Ravens, though, before we dive into the change and stuff with Cleveland.
First, I just want to start with this. Like, I know the Browns are 1-6, right? And they just traded Amari Cooper. And, this has not been a very good team this year. But I feel like anytime you go to Cleveland, like, it is going to be a dogfight, DAWG, when it's there. And so, like, I'm sure that's the drum that John Harbaugh is banging. He's banging on that drum this week. And, I expect this to still be like a physical game. Like, should the Ravens win this game? Yeah, they're the better team, but like, this is an AFC North game on the road. Yeah. And so you just don't walk into a game like that thinking it's a cakewalk, especially like this Cleveland D, like last year was one of the best defenses in the league and can rise up and put you in tough situations. And so like, I just want to start it there that I think like anybody that feels like, oh my gosh, the Ravens should just roll them. Like, Cleveland can be tough.
They have a good defense in particular. I mean, their offense ranks 32nd in the league. Yes. The defense ranks 13th, but you also need to consider that the offense has been struggling and that puts more pressure on the defense. But I think that this defense is good. Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in football. They have some good players in that secondary. Denzel Ward's a great corner. So they have some really good players on that defense. Jim Schwartz is a defensive coordinator. He's a really good defensive coordinator. He's an aggressive, historically speaking, a defensive coordinator. So I think that they do present challenges for opposing offenses. And it is not easy to just have success against that defense. They're not going to lay down. And I think that that's going to be
they're going to get up in your face. And like, if you don't rise up and meet that and beat it, right, especially blitzing and all those things, like, it can snowball on you.
Yeah, I think really like when you're looking at the defense, I mean, Myles Garrett's where you start the conversation. He's one of the best. He is absolutely one of the best players in the league at his position. So the Ravens have to minimize him. And then Jim Schwartz he's been known for a long time as one of the better defensive coordinators in football. And so the way that he calls games, the aggressive style, some of the exotic blitzes that he brings, I think all of that is going to test this offense.
I think it's funny, and it just hit me when you were talking about that. Like, okay, you just talked about Myles Garrett, who's the reigning defensive player of the year, I believe, right? And you spent like 2 seconds on him and then moved the conversation to Jim Schwartz, right? Yeah. Remember how much time we spent talking about Max Crosby and Micah Parsons before those games? And with good reason. Both fantastic players, and Max Crosby wrecked the game. So like, but I just think it's funny to think about like now with how well the Ravens offensive line is playing and Ronnie Stanley, who's going to match up oftentimes against Myles Garrett. Like the conversation's limited to like, Myles Garrett, one of the best players in the league. You got to match him. Yeah. And moving on, you know what I mean? Like that kind of speaks to how far the Ravens offensive line has come. Like we're not going into this being like the sky's falling. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this guy?
Yeah. And I'm going to guess that like Ronnie Stanley in the offensive line rooms, they're probably spending more time than I just spent on it.
Yes, I think so. But like it speaks to like just how the feeling has changed, and for good reason. Like they are playing at a high level. And I talked to Ronnie Stanley today in the locker room, and he said that compare this to his mindset going against Myles Garrett last year, and it's totally different. The confidence level that like, now I can go out there and block one of the best and feel like I'm also one of the best. Yeah. And I can match that. Like that is a far cry from last year where it was kind of like, you're just trying to piece it together to get through a game from a physical standpoint and then thus a mental standpoint. Yeah. And so like, it's just night and day.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see the approach that the Ravens take from a schematic standpoint. Like, do they go run heavy, we just sat down with Pat Ricard, and the Ravens are running the ball better than anybody. Do they really lean on that? Do they go more with the passing game? And what's your take on the direction that the Ravens could go, especially early in this game?
I don't know that it's going to be really one-sided game. I think they'll be fairly balanced. Derrick Henry, certainly you keep running him. It's working right now in Tampa Bay. It wasn't like some previous games where you're getting 10, it's 8 yards. They kind of hit 2 big plays, 81 yarder certainly helps. But I do think that it'll be a pretty balanced attack. Denzel Ward is really good. So you do got to be careful testing him a little bit. But I think it'll be pretty balanced.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when you think of Browns, Ravens, AFC North, you think of old school, rugged. This is the Derrick Henry game. He's the perfect fit. This is the Pat Ricard and Derrick Henry game.
Yeah.
And I think that there's probably some truth to that. But at the same time, you also have to deal with Myles Garrett, who has the potential to be a game wrecker up front, not just as a pass rusher, but in the run game as well.
Yeah. And sometimes you run the ball straight at guys like that.
I know the Ravens have taken that approach at times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that is one thing that I'll be curious to see is if the Ravens go into it schematically saying, let's really get the ground game going here. And this is why Derrick Henry's here. AFC North football, he's a perfect fit for this.
Right. Well, one thing that you're definitely going to have to do against the Browns is beat the blitz. And so Jim Schwartz, as you were talking about, he brings the heat. They're blitzing at almost 30% clip right now.
40%.
Oh, I'm sorry, almost 40% clip, right? So they're up 10% from even last year when people were talking about how they were such a high blitz team. Almost 40%, that's the third highest blitz rate in the league, according to Next Gen Stats. And so like I said, they're going to come after you. They're going to get in your face and make you beat them, right? They're not going to sit back and play it like that. And so Lamar, on the flip side, has been extremely good against the blitz this year. He has a higher quarterback rating against when he's blitzed than not. And so that is going to be a key to this game. Can the Ravens make the Browns pay? Because I think that's just who Jim Schwartz is and who they are. And I don't know that they're going to sit there and look at the stats and say, yeah, Lamar's beating the blitz, so you know what, we're going to back off this game. I don't think so. I think they're going to make the Ravens beat them.
Lamar was asked about his success against the blitz this week because he has been excellent. He's been the second best passer from a success rate standpoint, according to Next Gen Stats. Only Patrick Mahomes has been better against the blitz, according to Next Gen. And his answer, I thought, was pretty insightful. He said, hey, I just spent a ton of time studying the blitz. That's what I focus on. That's my main area of focus. When I'm looking at the film, I'm looking at the blitz. And then secondarily, he compared it to earlier in his career and how now he has more of a mastery of the offense and what defenses are doing, so he can get the team into the right protections and make adjustments to the line of scrimmage. That goes back to the whole giving him the car keys, Todd Monken putting more on his plate, all of that stuff. And he just has more of a feel and an understanding of what's happening in front of him.
Well, it's also kind of funny. I thought it was funny how he said early on, he's like, yeah, I can beat the blitz myself. I saw it coming over there, and he's like, he wouldn't adjust the protections necessary. He's like, whatever, I'm just going to get the ball out quick, or I'm just going to beat it with my legs and make a throw, whatever. I can beat that. And now it's he's like, all right, I need to adjust the protections, kind of the mastery of playing offense in the quarterback position instead of being putting it all on my shoulders to beat it myself, right? Let's work within the framework of the offense and do the right thing from a schematic X's and O's standpoint.
It's just gotten to a point where he's been so good against the blitz that you wonder if teams are going to stop doing it. Now, maybe this is not the team to do that because that's who they are. I don't think so, yeah. But he's been so good against it, and so I just am really wonder.
But he's been really good also not against the blitz. So I said he's been better against the blitz than not.
He's been good either way.
It's by a slim margin. Yeah. That's kind of it's kind of a coin flip right now. He's playing well regardless. I also think if you just sit back and let go in the zone coverage and let Lamar and these receivers just slice and dice you, he's throwing the ball so accurately that's not going to work either. Nothing has worked so far. So thus, I think that defenses will continue to kind of be this is our bread and butter. This is what we do. We're going to make him prove it against us that he can beat the blitz.
I think that I've said this before, but I think that what it comes down to, going back to Myles Garrett, the way that this Ravens offense could struggle is if you have a game wrecker up front. And Myles Garrett has that potential. But certainly. I think that the Ravens will have a good plan there, and I think that they'll do a good job containing him. But if it's the third quarter of this game, and we're sitting there saying, how is this such a close game? And I can't believe this. I was expecting the Ravens to run away with this thing, and it's a 3-point game here going into the fourth. What's going on? Mm-hmm. It's probably because you're looking at it, Myles Garrett has 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Like, that's probably what the scenario is if the Ravens end up being in a really, really tight battle.
And mistakes, they've hurt themselves at times. They had some of those mistakes with penalties in Tampa Bay. We've seen it earlier in the year. You can't turn the ball over. You can't, whenever you're facing a team that you're definitely better than, which I think is the case this week, how you lose games is by turnovers, penalties, costly errors, not converting in the red zone, things like that. Mm-hmm. And the Ravens, I think, have cleaned a lot of that stuff up. They've taken care of the ball well. Penalties were a little bit of an issue against Tampa Bay, but yeah, they need to play a clean game.
Yeah. So when you look at the Browns team, especially their offense, the big thing, there's really 3 major things that have happened in the last week for them. One is Deshaun Watson towards Achilles and is done for the season. So now Jameis Winston has been inserted into the starting lineup for them. The second is that their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, is now taking over the play calling duties from Kevin Stefanski, the head coach who had previously done it. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is Nick Chubb coming back from his major knee injury. He returned last week, did score a touchdown. Limited work for him, but he did get in the end zone against the Bengals.
Yeah, I think he had 11 carries for 22 yards.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a big day for him, but he did get in the end zone, and he's like the emotional heartbeat of that team, especially for the offense. So Wyatt
Teller, offense, very good guard for them, who was back in practice this week. We'll see if he plays, but if he does, that would also be big for their line.
Yeah, the quarterback thing obviously is the biggest. Yeah. And Jameis Winston, I actually talked with John Harbaugh about this week, and it's like, so you have Jameis Winston, it's a new offense in some ways with play calling changing and a new quarterback. Like, does that affect things? And he said, yeah, I mean, there's a bit of an unknown. It's a little bit like at the start of a season when you're going to face a team and what are they going to look like? How are they going to call things? It's going to be a little bit different. Like it's not like they're blowing up their system. It's still their same system, but the Ravens are expecting some things to change. So I think that early on, there's the potential that the Browns could catch the Ravens off guard on some things because it's new and they haven't seen it before. And so I think that there's an element of newness to what the Browns are doing with a new quarterback and a new play caller that could be a bit of a challenge for this defense.
I think it's more kind of on Cleveland's side that like Jameis Winston can chuck it, right? Like he's kind of the gunslinger, kind of in the Baker Mayfield mold a little bit. And Baker's playing at a really high level. I'm not going to sit here and say Jameis is at that level right now, but like he'll chuck it on you. And what I would be concerned about is like he comes out and he comes out hot and they get some confidence that they haven't had in that offense in a long time. The play callers dialing up some good plays and they hit the Ravens for a couple and like, okay, all of a sudden, like now this offense that's really just been in a slog all year long gets some wind behind its sails. Yeah. That would be like the scenario I think that I'd be like, oh boy, all right, this is going to be a game. Like buckle up, Nick Chubb. I have a lot of respect for Nick Chubb. I just think he's like, that dude's a professional running back. He knows just like how to run the ball. Kind of reminds me of like J.K. Dobbins in that way. Like dudes who just know how to run the ball. And Derrick Henry, of course, one of them. And I think that Nick Chubb, like kind of knocking off some rust in the first week also, he'll be a guy to watch in this game. And the Ravens, Zach Orr said that they expect that was kind of like the appetizer last week, that this is the game that they want to get Nick Chubb rolling.
Right. And you do wonder when there's a quarterback change, like Deshaun Watson obviously was struggling for them. Yeah. Like does that invigorate them a little bit? Right. And there's potential for that, especially a guy like Jameis who plays with attitude and energy and has that gunslinger mentality like you're talking about. So all of that I think will be a factor for this defense. They got the turnovers last week, which really changed the game. Marlon Humphrey had the 2 picks. I think getting those turnovers, like Jameis throws the ball up there. And so the Ravens coming up with takeaways in this game, that could quiet the scenario that we're talking about here. Like you're talking about them coming out and throwing the ball around the yard and having early success and hitting some big plays. Well, if you squash that early by getting the takeaway, then it could be a much different scenario.
Then it's here we go again kind of feeling for their offense, and in that stadium and the Browns fans are booing and all that stuff. That's what we want. Yeah. Right. I
like that option.
I like that scenario. Yeah. I mean, Jameis Winston's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns since 2021, I believe it is. So, Yeah, he'll put it up there. And, obviously the Browns pass catchers, they traded their best wide receiver in Amari Cooper. So it's Jerry Jeudy as the number one wide receiver. But don't sleep on David Njoku either. I think he's a really talented tight end. He gave the Ravens fits in the second half when they came to M&T Bank Stadium and won last year, which was like the last good game that Deshaun Watson played.
It's probably his best game as a Brown, yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I do think like Jameis Winston or Deshaun Watson is a guy who like holds the ball and is always looking to break the pocket and scramble and throw and all that stuff, and like took a lot of sacks because of it. Jameis Winston, I think, is going to get the ball out much faster. That's how he's going to operate a little bit more. Will he put into harm's way some? Sure. But like the Ravens defense has a different task against him.
I think Njoku is a good point. The Ravens have been, like when you go back to the Raiders game, for example, Brock Bowers had a pretty big day against the Ravens, and they've been susceptible at times to that stuff over the middle of the field between the linebackers and the safety, specifically with the tight ends. Njoku's uber talented guy. And so he's hurt them before, and he could do that again if you're not ready for that stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like I said, I think this is not going to be a cakewalk game for the Ravens.
Any other final thoughts before we get to emails? Because we teased the emails. All right. So we got a bunch of emails.
Yeah.
The inbox is flooded with emails.
People want those free t-shirts.
There's nothing like, it's like no matter what you do, if you go to a game and there can be so much fun stuff happening on the field, but once the t-shirt cannon comes out, then everybody goes crazy. That's so kind of what it's like when we put the call out for emails and we say there's going to be a free lounge.
I've like signed up for credit cards just to get a free t-shirt, free sub, like, freebies. Yeah. It resonates with me.
So as always, you can email us at ravens.nfl.net. We got a ton of emails, so we're not going to necessarily be able to read all of them, but if we do read your email on the air, we are going to send a t-shirt
if you live in the United States. We're not going I'm sorry to our international listeners, but we're not going international.
Mink's going to just try to get a plane ticket out of it. Hey, here's one that
I'll deliver it in person. More than willing to do that.
Here's what we got from Switzerland. You want to go?
Yes.
All right. So here's an email from Derrick who says, "This is my first time emailing, but I've been an avid listener for many years, but I'm a t-shirt guy. So when I heard you guys were giving away free t-shirts,
you're just going to give somebody that
he's got a question.
Okay. All right.
So his question
is, email us and be like, give me a t-shirt.
Yeah, but long time listener, first time emailer. And so his question is about all the illegal formations the Ravens had against the Chiefs. Since that game, I haven't noticed that penalty being called strictly for us or on other teams. Is our O-line is playing at such a high level? I can't be the only one to notice this. So did the league realize they were being too harsh on that call? Did the rest of the league actually make adjustments? What are your thoughts? And he also said, I hope you don't get fined.
Yeah, he's trying to get me fined. That's what I was about to say. He's trying to get me fined. I think that this is another case. Like the NFL has these points of emphasis is what they call them every offseason, whether it be, hits at the quarterback's knees or taunting or these different things that they want to clean up. And like this was their point of emphasis going into the 2024 season. And thus, I think that's why they emphasized it on the very first drive of the year with everybody watching.
Yeah.
And then like they were like, all right, proved their point. The data shows that it wasn't realistic.
They were way harsher on Ronnie Stanley in comparison to Jawan Taylor.
That's correct.
In that game.
And I'm gonna guess that the data shows that like since then things have not changed. That's my guess.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that that's going to be. I think that absolutely put it on the Ravens' radar, and I think other teams' radar. So maybe there's a slight increase in where guys are lining up, but I do not think it's drastic. I think that it was the point of emphasis, like you said, and the point was emphasized in that game. All right, so another question here from Carl. Do you guys think it's a problem that we're seeing so many defensive players gesturing to each other on the field, especially in the secondary? I've noticed this quite a bit, especially in the Commanders game. Marcus Williams seemed to be gesturing to a number of defensive guys. I'm guessing it's because somebody was out of position. So Carl wants to know, you see the touchdown and everybody's looking at each other and doing this. Like that can't be good, right? Is his point.
Zach Orr said on Thursday that there's just been too many mental breakdowns, that they're still having too many mental breakdowns 7 games into the season. And like, if they want to be the defense that they think they can be and should be, that needs to stop. And so, they've just had too many busted coverages. There was as we mentioned, the film breakdown, there was the busted coverage on their last touchdown to Rachaad White, over the middle, and Za'Darius and Roquan, somebody busted that. And like, they just had too many.
Yeah.
They need to clean it up.
And this will be, I think that I am choosing to look at the 6 drives of nothing in that game. Like that's the way that I am viewing that game. Basically, they had garbage time at the end of the game, and that's where they got their points. Early on, it was problematic, but then they settled in. They gave up 10 early, then they settled in, and they basically were shut down until things got haywire in the fourth. And you don't want to see that. Get a pick or get something, get a stop. But I'm looking at the 6.
I honestly was more concerned with the 10 in the first quarter than I was the fourth quarter.
Yes, I agree. But then they settled in.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, look, the point of the matter is, like, this defense is going to have a Buffalo Bills game again. Like, they were really good against the Bills.
Yeah. They
have that in them. They absolutely do. And, like, no bones about it. You have Jameis Winston this week, and you have Bo Nix, a rookie, next week against the Broncos. Like, in my opinion, these are 2 opportunities for get-right games. We've talked about this the whole season now. Star-studded quarterback after star-studded quarterback, this run of amazing quarterbacks, some of the best in the league. Like, all right, Jameis Winston is not in that level. He's not in that category right now. Bo Nix is a rookie. Like, this is your chance, if the defense wants to get a little momentum behind it going into the second half of the season, prove it. Here we go. Yeah. These are the games to do it.
They are, but it's like, and the flip side is true as well, which is what we talked about earlier, which is a guy can get hot, Jameis can get hot, and then you can have a problem.
Absolutely. The defense has to prevent him from getting hot. Yeah. So, like, it's on them to play to that level, and I think they're capable of it.
All right, so we got another question here from Karen Williams, who says, when is offensive holding really holding? It seems like there were a number of offensive holding calls that were Karen's also trying to get you fined.
Seriously, man.
And then the second question, a lot of officiating stuff here. There were 2 cringeworthy hits that were helmet to helmet on Lamar Jackson. Was this accidental? What do you guys think? Why didn't the refs call both of them? I'll start with the second one, just on the hits. There is a difference when the quarterback is running as a runner in comparison to when he's in the pocket. And so in the pocket, as you're a passer, if a defender comes anywhere close to his head with his hand, with his helmet, certainly they're going to throw the flag. But if you're running out of the pocket and you're in the secondary, like Lamar was on one of those hits, and you get hit in the head, they're not going to call that as much. Now,
you still can't target a guy with the helmet, with your helmet to their head.
Exactly. There's like a limitation to that.
Quarterbacks definitely, to your point, have more protection in the pocket than out of it.
And so when you're the runner, you don't get afforded that same protection. However, I do think, particularly on one of those calls in the Bucs game, I think they certainly could have called the flag on that. I mean, it was a shot right to the ear hole.
I was surprised that they didn't. Yeah. Didn't they call it different? There was a different penalty.
You saw the flag and you're like, okay, they're going to call it. Yeah. And then it was basically a low block.
Yeah, that's right.
And on the defense. But it was like, wait, what? Not this play?
Exactly.
But so I thought they could have certainly called it in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. And then to the holding penalties, I mean, I think that is
this your fine? Is this where your fine's coming?
Yeah, I think in Tampa Bay, like, I just, you know what? I won't say they were the wrong calls. I would never. I would just say they're questionable, debatable. Okay, so I feel like that's fair.
No, I
they got on, but they were calling it both ways. There were just a lot of penalties for holding. I don't know, like, whether they just saw holding on every play. Like, there probably is holding on every play. That's part of the NFL kind of. And it's just like, to what degree is it going to get called? And like, it felt like the refs going both ways were just like very, hard on holding.
Yeah, there was a couple. I mean, Zay Flowers was flagged for one that I thought was pretty ticky-tack. Was that the Lamar touchdown?
There's the Fa'alele that wiped out a touchdown.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
And pretty ticky-tack to take a touchdown off the board. Now, I will say the Bucs also had a touchdown taken off the board when Tristan Wirfs was called for holding. I thought...
That's correct. I thought that one probably shouldn't have been flagged also, to be honest.
Maybe I'm looking purple-colored glasses. I thought it was a great call.
I mean, I love the call.
Great call.
I love the call.
Clear holding. Easy flag to be thrown on that. All right, last couple emails here. Jared said, longtime Ravens fan in Missouri.
Okay.
The offense has the Chiefs so scared they had to go get DeAndre Hopkins. Get this defense back to Ravens standards, and this year's playoff meeting will be different. So, do you think that there's any connection at all just to the way that, I guess, the Ravens are playing to the Chiefs going to get DeAndre Hopkins, or what's your take? Yeah.
No, I think
you just think they thought.
I think the Chiefs have had a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball. They're
at receiver in particular. At
Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, and they needed a wide receiver, so they went and got one.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're trying to be the best team they can be. And yes, I think I'm sure see how well the Ravens are playing, and they're like, it's going to be tough to beat those guys again, and so they want to win another Super Bowl. And so they're going to get themselves, in the best position to do so.
Carlos Flores, another Missouri email here.
Missouri,
lots of emails
repping.
coming from Chiefs country, which I love.
We're going to know the zip codes there, front ways and backwards.
What's up, guys? Carlos here from the heartland of Chiefs country in Missouri. You can only imagine how rocking Ravens gear sits with the locals, but I don't care. Let the doubters know. Keep doubting. We have faith in our squad as long as we do what we have to do and control what we can. I see this being a great year. Let's go Ravens. I'll see you guys in NOLA.
No question, though.
There's no question. There's just a great
Do you get a T-shirt if you don't send a question?
No question. We never said you had to ask a question. You could just. It's just a good email.
It is a good email. I represent. I like that he's representing the Ravens
exactly
in Chiefs country.
I agree. And then last one is from Justin Davidson, who said, Justin here, huge Ravens fans. He said he actually got into the Ravens in 2018. His wife took him to his first NFL game, which was against the Bucs. Okay. Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback, so a lot of similarities coming off.
By the way, Jameis Winston won the Heisman.
Yeah.
How many straight quarterbacks now have we faced? Heisman quarterbacks?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Winston, Baker,
Joe
Burrow, Jaden Daniels,
and the Ravens have one.
Right. So is it 4? Has Lamar gone against 4 head to head against 4 straight Heisman winners? That's pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. So Justin says, I've lived all over the United States, never really found a team until that moment in 2018 when he came to the Ravens game against the Bucs. After seeing that atmosphere, walking down Ravens Walk, I ended up getting hooked. I appreciate the content. Keep up the good work. Go Ravens. So nice. I just think, Justin, he patted us on the back for the experience at M&T Bank Stadium.
He definitely gets a T-shirt.
Of a T-shirt. So we'll get those T-shirts to you guys. We appreciate that. Again, you can email us at thelounge@ravens.nfl.net. Thank you to everybody.
Shock the world. Oh, the big win in Cleveland, baby.